everybody. This is Stacy Rossetti, and I want to say thank you so much for coming to hang out with the Real Estate Pod. We are hosted by RentRedi. RentRedi is a property management software. If you have rental properties out there and you're like, I need to be able to handle all these properties, what do I do? Then I need you to check out RentRedi and check out how you can really kind of organize and systematize your business and make it easier and make it actually truly passive income, honestly. So RentRedi is the name of the host. I'm Stacy Rossetti. I invest in real estate. I've been investing in real estate for a while now. Check me out at stacyrossetti.com. But today we have a special guest, Steve Rozenberg, and he has been all over the place, been teaching and educating people how to get started in real estate investing. And he does all kinds of deals. And he's going to come and talk to us today about mindset. And introduce yourself to us, Steve Rozenberg.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. Appreciate it. My background is probably very similar to people that are watching this show. This is a kind of, I guess you call it a secondary life for me. Real estate was not my first endeavor. And if I'm being honest, I never really even wanted to be in real estate or a speaker or anything. My background and how I got into this was being an airline pilot. So I only wanted to be an airline pilot and have a career growing up. And that would have been great until a certain day in history that happened. And that day was 9/11. And 9/11 obviously changed many people's lives, mine included. And actually, I take it back. It wasn't 9/11. It was 2 days after 9/11, because that's when I got my furlough notice from the job that I thought I had a safe, secure career for the rest of my life. And the furlough notice was basically saying, your job is not so safe. It's not so secure. And good luck, because you're about to get on the street with 50,000 other pilots. So good luck to you. Mm-hmm. And for anyone that's ever been in that situation or something similar, you realize how humbling that is, and how when you learn to do something your whole life and that gets ripped away from you, and you realize that you really have no other skill set in life except to fly a metal tube around in the sky, essentially, and you're really not useful to anybody, and nobody even really cares the fact that you're not useful to them. Mm-hmm. And so it was a big, that was a big aha moment for me, that I realized nobody's going to care more about me, my life, my future than me. And so I started learning about real estate, because that's where a lot of people's wealth was created. I found I didn't know anything about it prior. And so I started reading a book a week. I started taking courses, seminars, mentorship programs, and I was flipping, wholesaling. And I failed at all of them. I got beat up. I got ripped off. I got lied to, you name it. But I learned a lot of valuable lessons. And I learned that that's the sandbox that we play in as investors. And it's kind of, I had to own that. And I had to keep getting up every single time that I would get thrown to the floor. And I had to figure out a better way. And so I eventually did. I learned from my mistakes, a very humbling moment in my life. But I did. And I started buying houses, apartments. I got very, very good at flipping and wholesaling through negotiations, and ended up starting a management company in Houston. And we built that company in about 7 years to about 1,000 properties. And we ended up selling that company to a much bigger venture capital company. So I exited the ownership of that property. And since then, I've been kind of, I guess you could say, the second half of my life, I've been influencing people and trying to help people understand why, right? A lot of people I've noticed, they talk about how to flip, how to wholesale, how to own self-storages, but not many people talk about why does that make sense for you, for your family, for where you want to go in life. So I guess my goal is to just really help people understand, what is your why and why are you doing this? Because I never had that. And I wish I did, because it would have saved me tens of thousands of dollars in sleepless nights. I'm sure you have your stories. We all have our stories, right? Of getting thrown to the floor. And if I can help people avoid that, that's kind of what I try to do.
Awesome. I love it. So let's get into it then. So how do we figure out our why? I want to know what my why is.
Yeah.
Actually, it changes my why. Should it change or not change?
Absolutely. It should change. I mean, it should, who you were 10 years ago is different than who you are now. The self-limiting beliefs that you put on yourself yesterday are going to be different than who you are in 10 years from now, depending on your environment, depending on who you're around. And so, everyone's why is different, and you can call it what you want, right? That's kind of this ambiguous word that people use. My thing is like, if you want to sit down right? If you were to be as simplistic as possible, you can take a blank sheet of paper. And the thing is it shouldn't just be you. It should be you, your spouse, your children, whoever's involved in your life that's going to be affected by this, right? I think one of the challenges as entrepreneurs and investors is we're very selfish people. And I say that very respectfully, but the reason I say that is we take all of this time, we watch podcasts like this, we go on Bigger Pockets, we do all these educational tools to learn how to be better, to provide for our families, but we don't share that with them. We just assume that's our job. And we never actually have a board meeting with them and bring them into the loop and say, do you guys understand what I'm doing? Do you understand where we're going here? And I did this. I say this because I did this. And I was that person that I was so busy being busy, thinking that I was doing this for everyone else. And the reality is I wasn't. I was doing it for myself to try to prove that I could do it. It wasn't what my family wanted. They didn't want me being more busy, more stressed, more, and so my point is if you take this and you bring everyone into the loop and you just take a blank sheet of paper and you just start saying, what does our life look like? What is a perfect life for us? Where do we want to travel? And I caution you not to put a dollar number on it. And I caution you not to put a time on it or anything. Now you're just thinking big picture. Like we want to go and, we want to have dinner in Greece on the Mediterranean. And I want to go whenever I want. I want to go to safari in Africa. Like what is our life? We can do what we want. After you figure out, and I call that your Disneyland, right? So that's your Disneyland of life that you want. Picture this golden place you want to go to. And once you know your Disneyland, now you have to put a quantifiable amount on it. You say, okay, well, what does it take to get me there? What do I need to have? Well, I need to have $100,000 a month coming in or whatever that number is. Whenever I mentor or coach people, I use a simple number just to start them off because, it's a hard task to do. And this is not a one-time conversation. But I tell them, start with 20 properties in 20 years, giving you $20,000 a month. Start with the base, right? It may be too high, maybe too low. I get it. Like you said, it's going to change over time. But once you have your 20, now you know, and it's considered a SMART goal. It's specific, it's measured, it's actionable, it's time related, right? Now you know what it is I want. So I know that's my Disneyland. So then you got to ask yourself, okay, Stacy, what do you have to do to get to Disneyland, right? You say, I got 20 years. So that's your freeway. That's your strategy. And you say, okay, what freeways am I going to take? Well, I'm going to do self-storage, and then maybe I'm going to do a buy and hold, and then maybe I'm going to do a BRRRR, and maybe I'm going to do a flip. These are all different freeways. The biggest mistake a lot of investors make is that they think that the freeway is the goal. They think that I'm doing buy and hold, I'm doing self-storage. That's like saying I'm going to get on I-95 North. The question is where are you going? Like, why are you on the freeway? Many people don't think about that. And so that's the strategy, and that has to quantify into getting you to the goal. So if you're trying to go to Disney World from Atlanta where you live, you have certain freeways you have to take. You're not going to go I-95 North because that's not going to get you there. So the first challenge we have when we're trying to figure out our goal is where are you going and how are you going to get there? So if you were trying to get to Disney World and you pulled off on the side of the road because you were lost and you said to somebody, hey, could I get some directions? What's the first thing they're going to ask you? Where are you going? If you say, I don't know where I'm going, I'm just going, they're going to go, well, then I can't help you. And many people, we as investors, we're so busy going and being busy, we don't actually know the destination. Now, the last piece of the puzzle is the tactic. The tactic is the multifamily, single family, mobile home, self-storage unit. That's the vehicle that drives on the freeway. Many people, and again, I'm guilty of this, I would buy the tactic first, and then I would go, what strategy does this fit in? I couldn't even spell goal. I never even thought about having a goal. So it's a kind of a long-winded question, but I think that's how you have to start with the end in mind, and you have to work it backwards. And many of us as entrepreneurs, we think it's a ready, shoot, aim. I'm going to be busy to be busy. But the reality is we know that the busiest person is not the most successful. I mean, if that was the case, construction workers and day laborers would be the wealthiest people on the planet, but they're not. But we think when we're doing our own business, I have to be busy. But we know that that's a lie. And we tell ourselves this lie because we don't really know what we should be doing because we don't know where we're going. Does that answer it?
I love that too. Yeah, because when I coach my students, essentially like their goal is to buy one storage facility. Like I'll have students come in like, I want to buy like 5 storage facilities this year. And I'm like, let's just focus on like getting the first one. What do we have to do to get the first one? Is that kind of what you're saying? Like break it down into like micro steps?
Yes and no. I would say that's like saying I want to get on the freeway. That's the first phase. Okay. But what is that one storage facility going to get you? What is the outcome that you want from that storage facility? So they say, I want a storage facility. Well, you could buy a 2-unit storage facility that loses $5,000 a month. And you go, congratulations, goal accomplished. And they're going to go, well, that's not what I wanted. It's like,
that's true.
You said you wanted to, so you have to be more specific. I want a storage facility that's going to give me $5,000 a month and give me a 30% cash on cash return and the cap rate of this, because that is going to get me to a bigger goal. So I think of it as like a rocket booster going through space. You have a stage 1 booster. That's the first goal. Okay. But where's the second booster and the third booster to get you into orbit, to get you to the destination? And a lot of times we get so busy thinking I'm going to buy 1 unit. Whenever someone asks me like, hey, Steve, is this something that's good for me? My first question is always, is that going to get you to your goal? Are you on the right freeway? If you can't answer that question with data, not emotions, but facts and data, then I would say you need to go back and rethink what your goal is before you buy anything. Because buying the wrong deal, as I'm sure you know, as I learned very many times, buying the wrong deal, that is 3 to 4 times more stress and energy to unwind that deal and cost than to just never buy it at all. And so, a lot of times, and again, I had 30, 40 properties that were the wrong ones. And to undo those situations that I created, it's very stressful, which is not why we're doing this. So I always go back to the term slow down to speed up. And I think it's very relevant in this industry, but I don't think a lot of people talk about that because we think that we should be doing to be effective, but that's not the case.
So essentially what you're saying is that we need to be more specific. Except our goals have to be very concrete, very specific, so that we know what we're trying to do, right? Not just so general.
Yeah, what I've learned, and I've been trained by some of the best influencers and people in the world, and the one thing I've learned from them is they go through a deselection process in life. They're more focused on who and what they're saying no to than what they're saying yes to. So they're always thinking, okay, is this in line with me? Can I help this person? Is this getting me to where? If the answer is no, then they say no. They decline the situation or the person or the deal. But when we want to be busy, we think it's a matter of saying yes to everything. And I think it's something that we just think we should do. I mean, listen, I don't think anybody watching this show isn't willing to put in 24 to 25 to 26 hours in a day, because we'll do whatever we can. But we know that that's not going to guarantee success. So it's a matter of, I think of it as like many people are like a can of tuna. They're the depth of a can of tuna, as opposed to being the depth of an oil well with one vertical. So you've got to think about that. Like you can't be everywhere and you can't be everything to everybody. You've got to be one thing. My thing is I help people with the mindset. I help people with focus, understanding, and I'm honest. I tell them, I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to make you successful. You want a friend, go to, the bar. You want to be successful, you come to me, because I'm going to make sure that I hold you accountable in what you're doing. And I'm going to stop you from doing the things that I don't think are going to get you to where you want to go. So it's not a matter of saying, do this, 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 and this. It's like, don't do any of those. Do that one thing, right? There's a great book called The One Thing. Do the one thing and be the master of that one thing, as long as it's getting you to where you want to go.
Yeah. My coach told me that like many, many years ago as well too. He was like, Stacy, the wealthy get wealthy by basically getting really good at one thing and doing that over and over and over again. Once you master it, then you just move on to the next thing. You can master something else, right? But
yes,
yeah, that's basically what you're saying, right?
Very much, very much.
I love it. So, okay, so now let's get into the nitty gritty. Like, what are some of the steps that we should be doing? Like you said, get your kids around, get your family around, try to figure out what your why is. Like, what kind of steps are we doing to move us forward towards our goals?
Sure. Well, one of the first things you got to realize is, what are you good at? What should you be doing, and what should you not be doing? So, when I talk to people or work with people, one of the first things I tell them is, okay, like, what is your role? right? What is it? You own a business. When you own a self-storage, you own a house, whatever it is, you own a business, right? And any business, if you don't have a business plan, you're going to fail. Who thinks that if you went to the bank and said, hey, I want to borrow $300,000 to start this business, they're going to go, where's your business plan? And you say, I don't have one. I'm going to wing it. I got a gut feeling that I think this is going to work. They're going to go, sorry, not giving you any money, right? But in real estate, we think it's okay. So first of all, you got to have a business plan, right? And then you got to have an organization chart of who's doing what. So in any business, I don't care what it is, you have marketing, you have sales, you have operations, and you have finance. Those are the four things. You have IT and HR, but probably not for this situation. So you always have those four things in a business. Now, they may not be as prominent when you have just a rental property, but when you have a rental property, you got to get the property, that's marketing. You got to close the deal, that's sales. Then you got to process if you're flipping it or self-storage, whatever. And then as the rental property, then you got to do it. Now, you can sub those out to people. So the first thing is once you know what your goal is, what your strategy is, you have to the first thing you got to do is you got to identify what market does this exist in for me. Some people, it may be San Francisco. Some people, it may be Tulsa, Oklahoma. Some people, it may be Atlanta. So I did a series on Bigger Pockets where I took a guy, he was a Marine naval aviator, and I coached him on how to buy a property in a different location, which was a different state, sight unseen. We built the team. Well, first we figured out what market he wanted to go to, which happened to be Atlanta, as coincident. We identified the market based on what he wanted, his parameters. We narrowed it down to 4 because I gave him some specifics of what we need to check, Fortune 500 companies, rental tenants, age of the tenants, income of the tenants, longevity, all those things. And so once we did that, then we built the team in that city. We made sure the team knew what our goal was, what our vision was. And it wasn't like we were this big company, but you have those conversations. And then we ended up finding properties. Some went into contract, some fell out of contract. We ended up getting one. We closed on it, did a $30,000 rehab on the property, ended up getting it rented, handed it over to a management company. And he never once to this day has seen that property. He actually got deployed and he's never seen it. My point is that's because I taught him how to run it as a business, not to be the doer, to be the CEO of the business. So where I was going with this is once you figure out where you're going to operate in, what city, which is going to get you to your goal, which is part of the strategy, then you got to figure out what am I good at? What do I do? So I recommend people first take what's called a DISC profile, because DISC profile is a personality profiling system to figure out what are my skill sets? Like, what am I good at? You probably know you're either someone who likes sales and marketing and being very bubbly and chatty, or you don't like people at all and you'd rather be in operations or, the CEO of the business. But you got to figure out what your role is, and then you have to complement that with someone else. So if you are an operations person, you got to partner with or hire a sales and marketing firm or person or whatever. Maybe it's just a realtor. It doesn't matter, but you got to make sure that role is filled. One thing that I do, which is very, very effective and it's very easy and it's free, is I tell people that I want them to do a 2-week time study of what they're doing with their time. So there's 3 parts to this. And anybody watching this, if you do this, you will be amazed at how, I hate to say it, how ineffective you probably are. So the 2-week time study is basically from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, you've got to track everything. 8:15 to 8:30, coffee. 8:30 to 8:45, ate breakfast. 8:45 to 9:45, social media. Whatever it is, I don't care. It's not the point of the exercise. You do that for the full day. At the end of the day, before you go to bed, you totalize everything that you've done. 2 hours social media, 3 hours driving in the car, 4 hours on the phone, whatever it is, doesn't matter. But you're totalizing it at the end of the day. So that's the second step. The third step is you write an executive summary to yourself, telling yourself, how do you think you did today? Just give me your opinion of how you did from an auditor's CEO level. You do those 3 things: track your day, totalize it, summarize it. If you do that for 2 weeks in a row, I guarantee you, you will see where you're wasting your time and where it's not being effective and why you're probably busy being busy and not busy being effective.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone I coach, huh?
There should be an app for that.
I don't know. People that I coach, I make them write it down. There's something psychologically with pen to paper I've learned. I tell them I don't want it typed. I want it handwritten. And if I coach them, I make them take a snapshot of it and send it to me. And I tell them the day you don't send it to me is the last day you'll hear from me. Because I'm not here. If I can't care more than you, right? If you don't care, then I'm definitely not going to care. So I don't, if you have to want it more than I have to want it. So I want it written in paper. I want it written down. I want it every day. And the day that you don't do it will be the last day you hear from me. That's just my deal, because look, we only have 24 hours in a day, right? I want to help as many people as I can. But if you don't want to be helped, which that's a choice, right? Every day we wake up, I tell people there's a recipe for success, right? And it leaves a trail. But there's also a recipe for failure, and failure leaves a trail. Every morning when you wake up, you have a decision to make. Which path am I going to go? Not making the decision is making the decision. And look, I'm not saying every day you have to be a superhero, but every day you're either going to be better than you were yesterday or you're going to be worse. You're never the same. You're either better or worse every single day. And so that's the decision you have to make. And so I tell them, if you want my help, I am expecting you. Our contract, our relationship is I'm going to be better for you, but you're going to be better for yourself. And if you don't want to be better, like, and it could be, I think of three things when I think of being better. I've learned to put it into three buckets. It's not just money, right? You can be the richest person in the world and drop dead of a heart attack the day you cash your check, right? You can be the richest person in the world and have, your family's left you, right? I see people at the gym and they live in their car. I don't want to be that guy either. He looks great, but so you have wealth, you have health, and you have relationship. It's like a three-legged stool. You've got to always focus on those three legs. You have to, right? And so I tell them, look, just because you have a comma in your bank account or a decimal point, it's not going to make you happy, right? You're not going to get to a lot of times we think to ourselves, once I make this money, I'm going to be happy. Like I ask people, like, what do you want? They're like, I want $25,000 a month coming in. I'm like, okay, what does that give you? Well, I'm going to be happy then. I'm like, okay, how? Right? Because I can make you $25,000 a month and I can make you busier than you've ever been in your life, and you will be miserable. But I'm going to give you 25,000. I can make that happen.
Yeah.
It's not the money. It's the journey of who you have to become along that. And a lot of times, we've been accustomed to try to avoid the pain of who we are and avoid the pain of failing. But the failure is actually the lessons. That's actually where we become better. And look, I don't care what you do. I don't care if you're an athlete, if you're a professional, if you're a CEO or a business. Every single person you ever talk to will tell you, if they're being honest, that they have failed at multiple levels. And the bigger their failures, the bigger they are. And it's just, there is a direct correlation. But many of us, we try to bypass that and avoid it. And I'm like, look, don't avoid it. Like it's going to happen. You are going to suck. I tell people that do social media and stuff, I'm like, look, you are going to suck on your first video. Guaranteed. You're going to be horrible. But by the time you get to your 500, you'll probably be better. Right? I mean, if not, then you should get out of social media to begin with, but you're going to be better. So that, I know you asked me one question, I probably broke it down into 50, but that's my answer as to how you get to those goals, to how to be better.
Well, and I always tell my students, I always say, think about, like, because you talked about delegating, or maybe even if you don't, delegating some stuff off. And I tell my students all the time, it's like, think about how your company would actually run if you focus on actually what you love to do and you delegate everything else off. Think about how your company would be.
I'll give you an example. I have learned to be a master at leverage, right? The great thing about real estate is the leverageability, if that's a word.
Yeah.
To be able to leverage. You can leverage people, you can leverage money, you can leverage time.
Yes.
The challenge with real estate is understanding who to leverage, what to leverage, and how much to leverage, right? That's because leadership through abdication, meaning leadership through basically handing it to them and saying, I just do it. That's not leadership, right? That's handing it off, and that's not being a leader.
Yeah.
So what I've learned is everything I do, and again, this is part of the process of them doing the 2-week time study, is what can you automate? What can you systemize? And what can you outsource? Probably 90% of everything that we do every day can fall into those three buckets. But our ego and our pride is normally what stops us from actually doing those things. Because we say, oh, they can't do it as good as me. Well, the reality is they could not only do it as good as you, but they could probably make it a little better because that's their only focus. But that takes away our ego of us thinking that we're the best at doing something. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times we think of all these things that we should be doing that's our responsibility. But the reality is I always tell people when I talk to people, you mentioned earlier about a business. The way I was coached by one of my mentors was the definition of a business is a commercial profitable enterprise that runs without you and has a sale date to it. So the reason that, and I can break this sentence down, is commercial profitable enterprise is basically something that makes money, right? That runs without you. That means that it is running through systems, through automation, and through staffing or employees or outsourcing so that you are not. Because if you have to be involved in the day-to-day operations, you don't have a business, you have a job. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with having a job, but make sure you call it what it is. Don't call it a business when you have to be there. If you got hit by a truck tomorrow and you couldn't go to work for 3 months, would your business be bigger or smaller when you come back? Mm-hmm. If the answer is it'll be definitely smaller, then I would say, well, then now you know what you need to work on. You need to learn to create a business. Now, the reason you have to have a sale date on it is because without an end date, it's a dream. It's not a goal. So I'll give you an example. I was at an event one time and one of my mentors was speaking, like he was thousands of people at this conference, and we were at the bar having a drink after, and I happened to just sit next to him. And he says, Steve, when's the sale date? And I'm like, sale date for what? He goes, the date you sell your business. This is our property management company that we owned, and we had rental properties and stuff. And I said, oh, I'm not going to sell my business. Like, I'm thinking this guy just talked about creating generational wealth and having systemization. I'm like, oh no, I'm not going to sell it. Like, I want to create generational wealth, and I'm going to create all these systems that are going to operate without me, policies, procedure, structure with my rental properties. And he said, Steve, you don't understand. He said, the reason you have to have a saleable date is because that means you have a sellable asset, which means you are no longer involved or needed in the business, which is what you're doing. That's why you're doing this, right? Mm-hmm. You're not doing this for a second job. And I thought, no, I'm not. He goes, so what's the date? So now I'm thinking, why did I sit next to this guy? Because I really did not want to be in this conversation. So our business was maybe 2 or 3 years old, right? And I wrote down February of 2020. I never forget. I wrote it, and he goes, write it on a napkin. Mm-hmm. So now I write it on a napkin. We sold our business in November or October of 2019.
I love it.
Is that coincidence? I don't know. We never planned on selling our business. That was never our strategy. We were going to keep growing. I mean, but we had a sale. We created a saleable asset. So that shows you the power of your subconscious of what you can create. Mm-hmm. And so to me, that was a big wake up call. Like, wow, like, okay, what you say and what you write down. That's why I tell people they have to write down their time studies. Yeah. It's amazing because your brain is a supercomputer. It will accomplish whatever you say to it to happen, right? Mm-hmm. You know, like you talk to people let's say they're golfing and they're saying, don't miss the putt, don't miss the putt, don't miss the putt. And then they miss the putt and they go, I knew I was going to miss it. You're like, so are you really surprised that you missed that putt? Because you just told yourself, your brain doesn't know the word don't. It doesn't know the word can't, right? It does not know those terms because we're trying to trick our brains. It says miss the putt, right? And so we have to be very careful of the vocabulary and the words that we say ourselves. 70% of the thoughts that go through our brains are negative self-talk. We have 1,500 words a minute that go through our head. 70% of those are negative, which is why we actually like watching the news, is because we can watch the news and we can relate to it and we can empathize with it. And we can go, well, at least my life's not as bad as that person's. Look at them. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But we enjoy that, actually. We actually enjoy it because that's what we're looking for. We're looking for commonality. So again, you have to change how you think. Instead of saying, you know, I'll give you the 3 words I always say that make people poor are try, can't, and but. Try is a failure word because you're basically saying, hey, let's try to have lunch on Friday. Well, if you don't, basically you're saying, I may not, I don't really want to commit. So I'm going to try to make $100,000 this year, right? I'm going to try.
Yeah.
So if you get to 70,000, you go, you know what? I said I would try. I didn't say I would.
Yeah.
As opposed to saying, I'm committing to making $70,000 by December 31st. That's a different conversation, right? And then the word can't, you're basically, before you even start, you're already failing. I can't do that. Well, you have just as much odds of doing it, right? 50-50, maybe more, of actually accomplishing it. How about saying what you can do? Like whenever I talk to people and ask them, what do you want? Like, what are your goals, right? I ask them, what are your goals? And they'll say like, well, I don't want this. I don't want a job. I don't want to be told what I want to do. And you probably hear this as well. I don't want a job. I don't want to be told what I want to do. And they'll go on and on about all the things they don't want. And I'll tell them, okay, that was not my question. My question is what do you want? I don't care about what you don't want. So let's try it again and tell me what you want. And they're like, you know what? They're like, I never thought of it that way. Like, I'm always so focused on running away from what I don't want. I've never actually thought about what I wanted in life. I'm like, that's your problem. That is the problem. And so you start realizing, you always say what you can't do. People ask me, they're like, how did you build a business, have a family, be an airline pilot, do all this stuff, go to the gym? And I said, well, it's simple. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning if I have to. I'll get up at 3 o'clock if I have to start my day to go to the gym. And the answer I get from them is, oh, I could never do that. I'm like, you can't or you won't, because that's a decision.
Yeah.
And so can't is a word that many people use as a way of basically already admitting they're going to fail.
Yeah.
And then the last word is but, right? When people say the word but. Today's a great day. I'd love to get into real estate. But I don't want to deal with tenants, toilets, and turmoil. So everything you said prior to the word but is negated because it means nothing. That was to soften up what you really don't want.
Yeah.
And so I tell them, I go, okay, how about saying the word and instead of but? I want to get into real estate and I really don't want to deal with tenants, toilets, turmoil, because now you're opening up yourself up to saying, okay, how can I work around this? I want to own 10 properties and I don't want to deal with the headaches of it. Okay, now your brain is opening up to looking for solutions instead of problems. And that's the biggest problem, is many people focus on problems and not solutions.
Are you the type of coach, kind of like I am? Like, you seem like it, but I just want to know. I just am very direct. Like, to the point when, where it's like, because I'll get my students on, I get some people on the phone or whatever, and they just go on and on and on about excuse after excuse. I can't do this. I tried this. And I'm just like, what you focus on expands, essentially. Like, Are you making this a priority? Because whatever you make a priority in your life is what's going to happen, essentially. And I tell them this over and over and over again. How do you handle students that are just like excuse after excuse? I can't do this. I tried, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, that's a good question, because we have this, a lot of times we have an imposter syndrome, right? We have the self-doubt, and I understand it, right? It's scary sometimes. They talk to you for an hour, but they got to go live the next 23 hours of their life, or maybe 2 weeks, to figure out what they learned from you in that 1 hour, right? So it's hard for them to understand. But what they're coming to you for is they're coming to you for accountability, and they're coming for you to tell them it's okay. And so what I tell them is, listen, like, I'm going to give you the tools, right? I'm going to get you right up to the front line. So I'm going to give you all the tools in your arsenal to succeed. I cannot make you go into that toolbox and pick it out and actually do it.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that if you don't do it, the life you have is going to be the life you have. So congratulations. So the challenge is, how do you get them to understand? And what I've learned is I try to break down what their fear is. What I go the other angle is, I ask them, okay, well, like, what is the issue?
What's holding you back?
Where is it? Where's the problem? Let's work on that, and then let's focus on solutions. So many people, they focus on problems. I coach people all the time, and they're like, I want to get more properties, but I don't have money. I'm like, so what's the assumption here? The assumption is that you need money to buy more properties, but that's not reality, because there's a lot of deals out there that you can do owner finance, you can get private money, you can do hard money, you can do zero down. There are options out there. So what is the real issue here? Well, I don't know how to do them. Okay, but what is the issue with that? Well, I'm afraid I'm going to look dumb, right? So it starts coming back. So I've always learned that you've got to ask somebody at least 5 questions to dig deeper as to what their real issue is. what they're telling you on the surface is not the reason they're not doing it. There's underlying reasons why they're not doing something.
Yeah.
And
So
so I start digging deeper into their questions to realize it's normally a status level. It's an ego thing, right? Or,
fear.
Because it's fear, but the fear is actually a reason of something else. They don't want to look dumb. Why don't they want to look dumb? Well, I don't want people that knew me growing up that told me I couldn't do it to say I told you so. Okay, why is that an issue? So you've got to break down these barriers of asking them why, because what they're telling you, that's not the reason. Because I've coached people, and I got a guy right now, he couldn't even spell private money 3 months ago, and now he's got 6 deals on the table of private money with all this money pledged to him, just because I just explained it a different way. Because he had this imposter syndrome, thinking to himself, like, I could never, how would I ask someone for money? I'm like, first of all, you're not asking anyone for anything. You're giving them an ability to do a transaction that you're going to make them more money than they would make on their own. So let's get out of this whole concept that you're asking someone for anything. And so it's just how you reframe it. You just have to reframe their issues, but that you can't reframe their issues on this top surface. You got to get down lower to understand what is their concern. But again, a lot of times, and again, I was one of them. We investors and people, entrepreneurs, we don't really know why we're doing something or why we're not doing something. Should I flip? Should I wholesale? What should I do? It's like, well, just pick one thing which is going to get you to the goal. Let's get the right bridge to get you to the destination. You can get on any bridge, but if it takes you to the wrong place, what's the point? And that's what a lot of times people have struggles with.
And that's just like what you said, that's just going back and trying to figure out what your why is. Right? Because whatever the why is really kind of what's going to help you lead to which path you should be down.
Absolutely. That's where it starts. Absolutely.
I love it. Awesome. Okay. Well, let everybody know how they can get in contact with you. We already know that you're on Bigger Pockets, so they can go and see you there, but where's the best place to find you at?
Sure. They can go to my website, steverozenberg.com. So it's ROZENBERG, steverozenberg.com. They can go follow me on Instagram. As an airline pilot, I travel the world. So they can kind of see some cool places that I travel to. I do a lot of free educational content that I'm constantly putting out there. I've got a YouTube channel. Again, just, you can Google me and find all the stuff, Facebook. I'm on all the channels, but I give a lot of free education. I've got a mastermind that I do. My goal is to help as many people as I can. And if I can help somebody at least change their mindset and think a little bit differently, just like we talked about today, and hopefully some people got some good nuggets out of this, then I'm happy, right? I don't need to make money off them to be happy. I can change lives by just changing lives, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. No, you're like me. I mean, it's all about just giving value. And
yes.
Then whatever happens. Okay. So steverozenberg.com.
Yes. steverozenberg.com, or they can find me Instagram, Rozenberg Steve. They can find me on Facebook again, or my YouTube channel. I do have a lot of videos on there. So anywhere they want, if they want free, good, educational, kind of hard hitting, as you can tell, I'm kind of not a soft, I'm kind of a to the point. I'm going to tell you how it is. If that resonates with you, then I'm the person for you.
Are you ever on Clubhouse?
I'm not on Clubhouse yet. I have a hard time sitting and listening. I just have so much going on. I just have a hard time doing that. But maybe I have a misconception of it. It's just not one of my focuses right now.
Yeah. Well, if you're ever interested, let us know, because we have a huge Clubhouse following as well.
Oh, okay.
Awesome. All right. So make sure that you find, as I said, we're on Clubhouse as well too. Search for me, Stacy Rossetti, or the room is Real Estate Talk. And thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you, Steve, for hanging out and giving us all your wisdom. And we will see everybody at the next training session. Okay. All right. Take care. Oh, now it's going.